this is just like a fairyland for them. You can come here and surrounded by beautiful views and mountains and go to all these great restaurants. That image of Asheville is targeting a different group of people than the people that are supporting the local economy.
Without workers, none of it will happen unless we have a really strong core of people that aren't struggling. I'm talking in the hospitality industry, obviously, that aren't struggling, that can make a living, that can start families here, that can contribute back to our community, that can, pay taxes, and their money flows back into the community, not their money just goes to surviving. So I started in the restaurant industry about 20 years ago here in Asheville, North Carolina. I opened up a restaurant called the Savoy. It was the first contemporary fine dining restaurant here in Asheville, North Carolina. I owned that restaurant for approximately 12 years, at which point we had a little bit of a crash in the economy back in 2008 and 9, and when that happened, I saw that fine dining was no longer going to be a category that would sustain itself here in Asheville. So I opened up a restaurant that you're sitting in right now called Vinny's Neighborhood Italian Restaurant. Asheville, again, I'll just look at it over the last 20 years, has changed so much because so much of the country, in larger cities, people were struggling, got more expensive for people to live. People wanted to get out of the rat race of the cities, and Asheville happens to be one of those places that is in the right place in the United States.
Well, there are lots of factors behind Asheville's growing economy. I think one of them is sort of the beauty of the area. Everybody loves living here because they like to see the scenic views. Lots of people come here on vacation and then decide they sort of fall in love with the mountains and they want to be here. And what that means is in today's economy, a lot of people can bring their jobs with them. So they move to Asheville and set up shop.
People who go to restaurants are people who are spending money, And I think it's a little bit sad that that industry is supporting so many people in this town, but the restaurants in this town aren't able to pay a certain, the amount of money that this people need to really flourish, The people who work at restaurants in this town aren't going out to eat at Bone and Broth or Curate or anything like that. They can't afford to.
I don't know. I mean, this town is thriving off of tourism, and that's the main reason it's where it's at today. We need that business to stay alive. We can't, if there wasn't tourism, the city wouldn't die, but there would definitely be a lot less going on here.
There are challenges with having an economy that's highly dependent on tourism. Because this is a great place to live, people want to live here, and that includes young people and people that maybe don't have jobs, and so they come here or they come to college here and they stay here, and what that does is that actually increases the supply of labor, which in and of itself also has a depressing impact on wages. So it is a struggle then to find housing because it's an expensive place to live, and wages stay low because there is this almost continual flow of people willing and able to actually be here, and that sort of keeps wages low. And places that have less attractive environments than Asheville don't tend to have as much a problem with low wages.
We have 750 restaurants in a town with a population of a few 100,000. I mean, that's insane, to have that many restaurants per capita. We're not feeding ourselves with that many restaurants, we're feeding people who are coming into the town.
1 in 7 jobs in Buncombe County are related to tourism, and then about 25% of that of those jobs are related specifically to food and beverage. So I don't think it's an underestimation to call Asheville's food and beverage industry a boom town, or it's a gold rush. A lot of restaurants are here, more are coming. There's a lot been made nationally over our restaurants and their success. And downtown, I would say, within the past 5 years, there have become 130 restaurants in a 5-mile radius of downtown. So the growth is here, and the jobs have been here, have been steadily increasing as well. So it's a big employer.
Everybody comes to me as an owner and says, well, just pay people $15 an hour. Well, if I pay people $15 an hour, there's an economics that works there. It's not just, hey, let's just pay everybody $15 an hour and everybody's happy. I didn't have to raise my prices.
Yeah, it's rough in the food industry for pay because the margins are so small on profit in food, because nobody wants to pay, you know, an ungodly amount for some food when they know they can go down the street somewhere else and get it cheaper.
The last place I lived in before moving to Asheville was actually Brooklyn, and you know, just living in a concrete jungle day after day, getting completely smothered by like millions of people. Like every time you get onto a subway car, it was just getting. That's not how I wanted to live my life, really. And so yeah, busting my ass every day in the kitchen just to be here. I would make the same decision every single time to come to Asheville and work here at the Mari.
You know, it's not just an employee, it's somebody I want to trust. I want them to trust me, I want them to be happy about being here, I want them, you know, it is a relationship, you know what I mean? So it's like, even though we don't hang out outside of work a lot or whatever, they're still my family, and I want to make sure they're taken care of.
Everybody is just so set in like, this is how you do it, this is who your market is, and this is what you can afford to pay people. Like, nobody thinks about like combining businesses together and working with other people and trying to figure out a way to like help each other create something that's like functional and sustainable and like kind of creates a more lasting situation for their employees where like they can be committed, learn more, and help the business in a real way, rather than just being an expendable, you know, person.
I know a lot of people in the service industry either just don't have the expendable income, or the credit. You know, I've heard some people, they don't even have bank accounts. They're just all cash, and like to me, that's like
the German music
that's
festival.
a music festival. Yeah, that was a culture shock to me.
Anytime you're in a place that's a great place to live, housing costs tend to be really high, and it's because of that increase in demand for housing that pushes prices up.
One of the struggles with maintaining staff is affordable housing. Employees either, you know, gang up and get a house and 4 or 5 people live in a house or an apartment, or they have to move out of the city limits of Asheville out into Buncombe County. But the biggest problem is if we don't find housing for our employees that they can go in and rent an apartment for $700 a month, we're all going to be in big trouble.
Financially, finding a place to rent was really hard for talking about, you know, service industry.
Yeah, I remember just when I first got here, just that's all I heard about was getting into an apartment was, you know, the hardest thing. And you know, I actually moved down here from New York, where everyone I knew was renting. Like nobody, rent was absolutely ridiculous up there. But I found it actually harder to find a rental down here than it was in the tri-state area.
We've got some things that are fairly easy to accomplish, and then we've got some things that are a little bit more difficult. I'll start with the easiest, which would be that all restaurants follow federal and local laws, federal, state, and local laws, which seems like a pretty easy one. Although I think that you would be surprised how many incidents of wage theft there are in this industry as a whole. I think the Department of Labor said something like 85% of restaurant workers report some sort of wage theft at their jobs.
For the amount of hours I work, you know, I'm really making like $8 an hour if you actually break it down. So it's, you know, it's definitely still a struggle to stay afloat.
A lot of people in this industry are like stay in the restaurant industry so that they can afford and have the time, the spare time to do the thing that they actually like doing that isn't how they make money. I personally feel really drained because you are someone's, in the front of house part of it, like you're someone's servant and they can ask you to do whatever they want, and you know, you've got to at least be nice to them no matter how unkind they are.
When other people are at home playing with their kids, we're at work. When people are celebrating holidays, we're at work. And that's just how it is.
Eventually, like, we have to start doing things that help us, and like make things here that aren't just to like sell to tourists, because it's such a fickle industry. Like, you know, something can happen like HB2 and we're not cool anymore. We're assholes all of a sudden, and people don't want to come here, and then everybody's screwed because that's what we all depended on.